Hello and welcome to Throwback Games. I'm here today to talk to you about one of the most important things I think we discuss on this channel, which is the Xbox 360 and PS3 era of gaming. Taking you back to when you were in your teens, you're sitting at home, your mum and dad are arguing about something in the background, you're sitting way too close to a LCD or CRT TV, burning your eyes out as well as your brain, but then you realise, man, we really did have it very good, and at that point in time I don't think we realised how good we had it. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to dive into that specific era of gaming, the PS3, the Xbox 360, roughly 2005 to 2013, and we're going to ask ourselves, why did we have it so good? Was it the games? Was it the establishment of multiplayer as a household item? Or was it just that whole overall nostalgia experience? So settle in, grab yourself a cup of Mountain Dew, and let's go back to the times where MLG was the main thing, and editing your name to be in a clan was the in thing. And you're totally okay to disagree with me, but in my experience and opinion, you're wrong. But anyway, let's dive into it. Let's go. So the first thing I think we should talk about is obviously the games. Now, the games in this era were built different. There was a whole series of titles that came out and just blew everything away. Let's have a look at some of the big hitters of this era. Obviously, we start with Modern Warfare 2, the multiplayer game that changed a lot of things, let's be honest. Real life friendships were ended here. If you were ever caught peeking down your scope for longer than a second, you were instantly a pilgrim who could not quickscope, and that was definitely me. I was not able to quickscope, however, I did have a bit of an affinity with the M9 Akimbos, got them to gold, definitely not boosted at all. Halo 3 was another big hitter from this generation, and let's be honest, if you didn't play Halo, you haven't really lived. I was much more a Halo person than Modern Warfare. I preferred the scale of the battles, the vehicles, and the all-around sort of chaos that could come in a Halo game. Just insane. But if multiplayer wasn't your thing, don't forget you had plenty of options here as well. You had great games that challenge you in stories like Mass Effect, and the Mass Effect trilogy spawned on. Obviously, we don't talk too much about number 3, but 1 and 2, especially 2, were fantastic games that really gave you an element of choice, something that BioWare obviously specialises in. But again, from that era of gaming, Mass Effect is considered one of the peak. You had Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. Insane games, and I do remember finishing Red Dead for the first time and then going to gun down that Pinkerton bastard as Jack, and that felt quite satisfying is the word I'm looking for. So yeah, when you go there and you have the whole cutscene and you've already been with John, you've gone to Mexico, you've gone to the USA, you've hunted down all the gang, just incredible. And I think even like the multiplayer on it was pretty good. And Undead Nightmare, when DLCs were really, really good, but we'll get onto that in a bit. And let's not forget the all-time GOAT, in my opinion. Now, this might raise a bit of questions, but you know what? I'm a sucker for this franchise, and I think anyone who knows me knows what I'm about to pull out from under the desk right now. Hold on. It is, obviously, Gears of War, man. Gears of War 1, 2 and 3. 1 was the first game I ever purchased. It came bundled with my 360 from Blockbuster. If you're old enough to remember Blockbuster, you're definitely old enough to drop a subscription or a follow, whatever you call it, do it. Gears of War was the perfect mix of story and multiplayer, and it was one of those games that I would always try and get through the story first before going into multiplayer. And I specifically remember when number 3 came out, I tried to avoid it like the plague, because I know that some of my friends have put in a group, there's elite cutscene, and we all know what it is. We try not to talk about it, but we know it.
Never thought it would end like this, huh? Huh, Maria? Tom! No!
We know it still affects us in here, boys. We know it. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. But yeah, the Gears franchise was insane and easily my top 360 title. I also definitely think I'll be scolded if I didn't mention Skyrim. A lot of people have a lot of love and affinity for Skyrim. My cousin put in an ungodly amount of hours. I don't know how he ever managed to escape the clutches of Skyrim, but honestly, again, a game that transported you to another universe, and it was made with such care, love and attention. Something that we don't get nowadays. And maybe it's just me, but I'm really sure it's not. But every game felt original, every game felt complete, and, you know, Lord and behold, you brought a disc, and every game felt finished. You didn't have to have a day one patch that fixed 60 things that were wrong with it, or as soon as you load on, there's a battle pass that says, oh, you've just brought a £60 game, can I have another £20? And you're like, no, thank you. Now, I know online play existed before the PS3 and before the Xbox 360, but let's be honest, it really took off in the 360 and PS3 generations. Yes, I know we had wonderful issues with PS3 data hacks, the only generation of PlayStation that I skipped because I didn't want to spend £500 on a fat piano. However, now, once it's under my desk, but for a much more reasonable price. The online play, you didn't just play online, you know, you were born online. You could join a lobby and instantly your mom would be called a slag 5 times by some random guy in Newcastle, and then they come and threaten to stab you. And I think that sort of thing is wasted on this generation. And let's not forget the fact that you could always smack talk, but evidently most of the time you would be destroyed by a 13-year-old, even though you weren't much older at the time. And then your self-confidence would be on the floor shattered, and you'd have to remain quiet in the rest of the party for the evening. Yet those were some of the best gaming nights we ever had, staying up late, chatting around a new game. When a new game come out, everyone jumping online. The most wonderful thing you could ever see is when your friends list was populated with everyone playing the same game, and you know, your invites would be going left, right and centre for people to come in and enjoy this new game together as a community. Achievements and trophies become our shared addiction. The game score system was simply wonderful, man. It was always, I don't think there was ever a real competition to it, but it was always nice to join a lobby and be like, oh, whoa, this guy's packing some big numbers. And just like even chasing some of the stuff for the achievements, like when you were chasing seriously, and then when it finally pops, you got to have the gamer picture as a sense of pride for your accomplishment, which you've done. Again, I think it's something that's totally wasted. And game chat. What a wonderful thing game chat was. Don't get me wrong, parties were fun, and parties still are fun today. You can go in there with your mates, you can chill, you can go on Discord and whatever, and the way that technology has come along is massive. However, there's nothing like being in game chat when your mate, or yourself, probably my mate in my circumstances, has clutched up a 4v1 on Search and Destroy on High Rise. There's no feeling like it. When games were complete, when we brought these games and they were finished, I touched on this earlier, but Lord above do we feel that we buy games in this day and age and we are constantly getting stiffed by the fact that, oh, here's a DLC, like a month into the game that definitely could have been included, and you're there like, well, you don't really have to, but you're a slave to the ecosystem and of that game. If you want to get the most out of it, you want to get the new guns, you want to get the battle pass, you want to get everything. Just remember, we came from a time when we were all excited when a COD map pack was coming out and added 3 maps for the lovely price of £7. A different time and a different age. DLC existed, obviously, but it was worth it. Like the Ballad of Gay Tony, Broken Steel, Lair of the Shadow Broker. It felt like they were bonus additions onto a game that you had already got the most out of. They weren't released in order to try and fix a game that wasn't even finished. You could play offline and you weren't always forced to be online. Easier times. And best of all, you know what I mean? It will never ever go back to this, but best of all, you got hard copy discs. And you can do what you want with them. You can trade them in, you can do X, Y, Z. I know Xbox tried to implement that whole you can never trade in thing, but my word, there was something special about building up your gaming collection. Then when you were finished, you had the autonomy to just be like, oh, I don't really want to play it anymore, so I'm going to go trade it in and get something else. Okay, one of my personal favourites from this era, midnight launches. Let me tell you a story. When Gears of War 3 launched, me and my friend were at our local game in the UK, and we were there nice and early. We were maybe like 5th or 6th in the line, something like that. But they opened the doors and then all of game systems went down. So everyone was in the shop for like an hour, and they were just waiting. But then when you got it, it's just something so magic about it. You'd rush home. We both played a little bit of it before we went to bed, and then the next day it's like, oh, here we go again. And that magic of gaming has been lost, and I feel that, yes, it's very nice to be able to have the digital download and you can just play it straight away and you can have whatever you want. However, There's just something different about going to the shop at midnight with your mates, picking up the game and being like, here we go, it's time. Launches mattered back then. It wasn't just a rollout, it was hell, let's make this the biggest event we can. And it's the same with like Halo 3 midnight launch. Pandemonium in the gaming community because everyone was rushing to get their hands on it. And it was a real generation of love from not just the developers, but from us as gamers as well. I feel now we're more consumers than we are gamers sometimes. A great genre of being in perfect balance. AAA games looked amazing, and you had your regular ones like your COD, your Gears, your Halo that were coming out and you knew would blow out of the park. Assassin's Creed, all of that. You had stuff that tried different things like Mirror's Edge, Alan Wake, Brutal Legend, just to name a few. And yeah, some of those games did fail, but at least they really tried, and you could tell they were trying to make it with love and care and with the gamer in mind. It was something wonderful. And don't forget the indie scene. Who remembers the Xbox Live Arcade when you could go on there and get loads of minor games? Trials HD for one, Geometry Wars, Peggle. My word, there was no bound on some of the games that came out in that arcade. And I spent an unhealthy amount of time on Trials and the Battlefield game that came out in there as well, with like 4 maps set in the Pacific. Just wonderful. And I'm not, this isn't me saying indie games suck now, because they definitely don't. And some of the most successful games in the past few years, take from Balatro for example, have been from those indie developers. But my word, when it was back then, it just felt a bit different. It was a revolution that was coming from those studios and from those minor games that were going up against the likes of your CODs, your Gears, which are still the same today, but to have it at the inception of that sort of indie versus AAA was really wonderful to be part of. And the choices were just, you could go on and you could be like, oh, I want to play this, maybe I want to try this, or maybe I want to try this random game that no one's ever heard of, I'm going to make my friends buy, and then we're never going to play it ever again. That's on me. And then the end of the era came. The PS4 rolled out and the Xbox One came, and they were exciting and they were new, but it felt different, and it didn't feel that it was full of love the same, and the magic sort of shifted. Games got prettier for sure, 100%, but it also got pricier, a bit slower, more corporate, more money involved. Suddenly it was patch this, update that, connect to the server, buy premium currency, and the end of experimentation gave way to the era of optimization. Optimization of your wallet, that is. Getting the most out of you as a buyer. Which I feel is really, really sad, and that's where we lost it. And don't get me wrong, there are modern games that are still pushing out, and they're filled with love. They're filled with people want to create something really genuinely great. Like, let's take example Crimson Desert. We've got Ark Raiders. Later on in the year we'll have Wolverine, GTA. But the Xbox 360 and PS3 years were chaotic good. Bugs, trash talk, lang, all of that. It felt alive. It felt genuine, and it just felt human. The Xbox 360 and PS3 era wasn't perfect by any means. The red rings of death caused stress, especially when it came out 2 days before Grand Theft Auto 4, speaking from my personal experience. PSN got hacked. Controllers were still ridiculously expensive, but still took AA batteries. But damn, it was beautiful. It was ours. It was where we grew up, and it was where we defined ourselves as gamers. Gaming had heart, grit and soul, and not everything had to be monetized, not everything had to be live. It was just about for the love of games, and we'll never forget it. But thank you for joining my quick retrospective of the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. If this is your type of vibe, we do this stuff on Throwback all the time, so please stick around for the next video. Thank you.